hope you enjoy this. So it's like yes, we have wait. Yes.
I'm gonna steal your mic just for a second. We'll put it back after. Welcome, everyone. I hope you can hear me on Zoom too. Yes. I can't find your cursor here, but
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
maybe we just hit return. Oh, I can't tell if it's on there.
Alt-tab. This computer's older than when I was here.
All right, so while you're fixing this, I don't know if that's important to you, but I'm
No,
not.
I'm okay.
I think we need to get rid of that though, so he can control his screen. But while you're doing that, I will introduce Dr. Rob Condon. It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Rob. He was born in Australia and got his bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Science at the University of Melbourne, and then received his PhD at the College of William and Mary in 2008. He has subsequently had appointments in the Mid-Atlantic, Bermuda, and the Southeast United States, including also here at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab many years ago, but not too many years ago.
10 years ago.
Who's counting, right? He currently is in North Carolina and is founder and executive director of the Young Scientists Academy. His work and research prior to founding the Young Scientists Academy spanned a range of topics in environmental sciences, but specifically two really important areas in which he worked are jellyfish blooms and understanding the cycles of jellyfish blooms, which for those of you who have or were currently taking my scientific communication class, I hope you have lots of questions for him on the status of that whole brouhaha, which is really exciting. And then also, of course, work on the Deepwater Horizon oil spill as well. So his work has been pretty high profile. He's been recognized in National Geographic, New York Times, Huffington Post, and a lot of other places. And so it's really exciting to hear the story he's going to talk to us today, which is about his journey actually leaving formal academia and then moving on to transfer science to students. So,
I like that.
Not that
transfer science. Hello, everyone. Oh, that's really loud. So, sorry. We good? Okay. Yes. Good. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Ruth, for the introduction there, and I want to thank you also for hosting me for this seminar today. It's really great to be back where I was 10 years ago, not today, but almost. A lot of things are still the same, some things are not, and that's cool. It's been really great to see the colleagues again and see some familiar faces and also meet some new people as well. And I'm around this afternoon as well. I think that might be time on the schedule. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you. So, as Ruth mentioned, I basically have stepped away from a formal academic role in the universities and started a non-profit that is youth that really need these experiences in science and teaching them the process of science and how this could be a really great way to learn career paths and also learn and use the components of science as a way of life. This is something that is definitely missing in society. We really need to engage our youth as future leaders in the community. And so what I'd like to do today is talk you through some examples and some stories about how I've set up YSA and sort of give some feedback about how we can invest in our youth as future leaders. It's not going to be a typical science talk that you might experience, and I think that's okay. And I think that's part of the point that I'd like to make here is that we are in a very important position as scientists, and I'm putting myself continuing in that role. I'm a research scientist, and we just need to learn effective ways and meaningful ways to invest in our youth. Otherwise, we're doomed. So this is what I'd like to talk about today. And I want to start by, okay, so now this is not. Isn't technology wonderful? You know, I tell my kids that, yes, technology is great, but it's only a toy. And you have to use the technology for good use. And so when it's not working, it's still a toy. But now it's technology again, it's working. Okay, so obviously we're here on the Gulf Coast, and Deepwater Horizon is something that was tremendously bad for everyone that lives in this area. It's bad for the environment. But it's 13 plus years ago. And I want you to think about the significance of that time frame and put it into perspective of youth. Because we now have a generation here in the Gulf Coast region that have grown up not really knowing what the true impacts are of this, that have to deal with all the issues that are going to be happening in the long term with the Deepwater Horizon policy. So we have to find effective ways to engage our youth. And that starts with everyone that's here in the community. So I just want to do a quick straw poll here. How many of you have actively engaged with youth either in school setting or outreach events over the past, say, 6 months? Okay, that's good. Let's say 1 year. Good. How many of you have kids? How many of you have kids that go to Title I schools? That is a school that may not have the resources to teach science, or that perhaps the kid is on the STAT program and is in pre-religious schools. Yes, so you can start to see that there's a little bit of disconnect. Now I'm going to ask this question. I want you to think back when you were a youth. How many of you had a really good upbringing that enabled you to pursue science or technology? Now I'm going to throw it back to you as leaders of the community. How many of you think that over the past 13 and 15 years, since Deepwater Horizon was that we have effectively and meaningfully engaged with our youth that will enable them and give them the confidence and skill sets to deal with this. Okay, good. So we're all on the same page. This is really the thing I'd like to start thinking about as community members, is how can we really reach out and engage with youth? And the youth that we're dealing with are going to have to deal with a lot of other issues as well. Climate change is the big one. And a recent study before COP28 showed that 85% of our planet, and people that live here, are impacted by climate change for a variety of reasons, drought, wildfire, so on and so forth. But the issue there is that even though Earth's climate is changing rapidly, we know everything about it. the people that are going to be impacted the greatest are going to be those of low-income communities. These are the ones that we really need to get now. So in many of these issues, there is a disproportionate impact. So it's even more important to engage youth in these endeavours now. So when you start to look at what are the impacts of climate change, well, you have flooding, you have foresters, which is not really directly with climate change, but there is some feedback. Hurricanes, wildfires, droughts, so on and so forth. Do you think that these issues are impacting the youth and the communities that are being impacted? Yes. Are they thinking about it? No. Because there's a full suite of other things that impact our youth all around the world. Whether it be, am I going to get a meal today? When's my dad going to get out of jail? Am I going to get bullied at school today? This happens all the time. And this is what's really impacting our youth now. They're not really concerned about this. It's really important. And in many cases, a lot of these issues here are also synergistically impacting things that are currently occurring in their everyday lives. So in many respects, our youth have been dealt an unfair hand. They're the ones that have been asked as the future leaders to be the innovators, the explorers, the ones to actually solve these issues. But how can we do that if we're not inspiring people to succeed? And science is such a powerful tool for problem solving issues in our community, right? I think that's pretty evident. It's why we get funding. It's why we do research, right? We follow the process of science and we gain knowledge, and it should benefit society. But when we look at how our innovations work, our education system is broken. It just is. Who grew up with education experience that they felt was really, yeah. You ask that to a kid today, it would be like some things are good, some things are bad. I think there would be a preference for one science disciplines. And the fact of the matter is that most of our youth will not experience science at all. In fact, if you look at one of the most important, if not the most important scientific discipline in the universe, that has to be physics. But less than 1% of youth will take physics as a subject. At least what do. And I bet you it's the same for Alabama and all around the US. Less than 1%. And of that less than 1%, 80% are white minorities. That's a fact of the matter. So then you start looking at the workforce. Those disciplines where physics is important, engineering, computer science, and you start to see that those workforce are primarily dominated by white men. So we need to do better. Other countries are doing it better. There are some countries, I'll talk about one later, where 100% of youth faculty physics, biology, chemistry, critical technology, from grade 7 to grade 10, 100%. And I think the results in the education system are quite better. So we need to do better there. And if you look at the schools in themselves, we'll see here in the chart here, these are all the schools that you have in the Wilmington space. And their test scores, NDP test scores versus the percentage of free and reduced meal plan students in that particular school. All the red dots there are downtown schools. Blue dots are in the sort of suburb areas. And most of those, if not all of the red dots, are Title 1 schools. You can see that there's a big spread, a negative correlation between test scores and the minority mix of who makes up that, right? So we just need to do better there. So we're all about engaging our youth with meaningful endeavours in STEM careers. So is this microphone coming through okay? Okay. So we're a non-profit, 501c3, based on the coast, southeast coast of North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina. And we're headquartered in a building called the Ellison Centre, which actually used to be a jail in Wilmington. And about 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, they actually moved the jail and they have repurposed this building into a non-profit campus. So we're housed in this building with about 25 other non-profits doing a wide variety of military things. And I'll talk about the importance and significance of that a little bit later on. But our mission is very, very simple. And it's a good summary of what I just sort of summarized there. It's empowering all of the community ambassadors of science and technology with an emphasis of using science to discover and deliver solutions that benefit communities. And I'll just highlight right now, the word community is very, very important. The community is so many. From an ecological standpoint, we have this sort of strict definition, right? But when you look out there from a socioeconomic standpoint, community can mean a lot of different things, and it's constantly evolving and moving day to day in some cases. Again, we'll talk about the importance of thinking about that definition as well. So I think what I'd like to talk about today, I'd like you all to sort of think about how you learn about science. So let's go back and get the young again, young scientists, you're all young at heart. So I'm going to give an overview of what we call the YSA way. And there are lots of sort of facets to this. It's very, very fluid. But I want to highlight some of the research initiatives that the youth themselves are doing and the subsequent impacts on their community. And then I also want to give some advice, give some feedback. Maybe we can have a discussion at the end. To provide some feedback on how you, as academic scientists, can collaborate with you. I think the main reason why I started YSA is there's such a huge disconnect between the really, really cool stuff that happens on an academic campus, research and fieldwork and all of that, with the community that exists. And I think we need to sort of go back to those grassroots approaches and think about how can we do this effectively. So with that in mind, I'm also going to sort of take vision for YSA where I'm going to be taking this more on a global scale, over the scale. I would say there's never a dull moment at YSA. That's probably the easiest way to we meet kids where they are in terms of their maturity, their academic developments, where they are in the school age. And we get them involved with hands-on approaches. We're in a lab, we're out in the field as well, doing work as well, doing outreach stuff. And here are some examples of some of our programs. We typically focus on upper elementary and middle school youth, although also our programs include high school youth as well. We try to really young kids, but that was a little bit of chaos, not even organized. It involves scaffolds and things like that. So, and we have two main approaches to what we do. We put them into the brackets of what we call our Explorer programs. And then once we're finished with our Explorers, they graduate into our Ambassador programs. So let's talk about the Explorer first. So the Explorer step is all about getting our youth comfortable with using stuff. It's focusing on the first two steps of the process of science. Things to observe, and you need to come up with ideas and questions. Very, very simple. It's very hard and challenging sometimes to get any answers out of this, right? How was school today? Good. What to do? I forget, right? So, but we need to be comfortable, we need to be confident in what we observe in the real world, because we can't do the rest of science and use it as a problem-solving tool and be a way of life. We can't get over the first few steps of the process. So that's what the Explorer level is all about. They're in there using glassware, beakers, viewpoints, technology, computers, all this type of stuff. Yes, stuff is broken. That's okay. I can't tell you how much glassware I've broken once. Yeah? Lots? Right? But it's in a safe and nurturing environment. So we learn those type of things. And at the same time, while we're doing these, what we call guided research, not like following the rest of the stuff to be learning, yeah, and eventually they're learning also critical thinking, they're invited to join our master level programs. And this is where we're learning the entire process of science and how we can apply that to the real world, right? So, hypothesis, experiment, right? Scientific analysis, and really, most importantly, communication, right? I don't think that science, this is my personal point of view, that science does a great job at communicating the impacts and summarizing effectively what research does and the importance to the community. The nice thing about this is a bottom-up approach, and that the youth can actually experience the whole process of science, go through the struggles of repetition and all that type of stuff, and then come up with their own answers for it. So that's the really nice thing about it. And they're being on the news, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that. And they're presented as science too. So they really are truly being ambassadors of their trade and leaders and citizens in their community. This is some pictures of not only our what we call our interactive think tank facility, but you can see here that there's a big blackboard on the walls, so there's often like ideas and thoughts that are up there. Often there's lots of junk up there too, but that's the way it works. But you can see here they're working with guys and Raspberry Pis and doing some computer engineering, ultimately learning a little bit of Python coding too, using microscopes. There are so many barriers in society, whether it be just regular family barriers, societal barriers. Transportation is key here. And I would encourage everyone to actually, rather than hosting students, to come into facilities like this, which are all in the book, go to the communities. And so we purchased a 15-seater van that, I'll give an example on Fridays. We're actually visiting 12 different schools, it's 2.5 hours on the road, so they can do this. It's really, really important to not be a barrier in yourself by limiting their ability to do science. So we're out in the community as well, as we're getting that. So we're working with community centers here, they're already there for us with programs. Let's engage, right? Sometimes it's struggle, they're on the basketball. Hey, you do it. So we've been a nonprofit for 7 years now, and I'm extremely proud of the work that we've achieved today. And a lot of this is the hard work and dedication from the team that I've assembled, and their equally dedicated approach to bettering our youth in the community. But also, I think a lot of credit goes to the youth themselves, right? To have the courage to try something new and see where it goes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But they're also important life stories as well. We're serving about 120 to 130 youth every week in our programs. On average, we have about 12 students in a class. It's about quality, not quantity. But we still have a retention rate of about 90%. And I'm really proud of that certificate in itself. But I've one of the most enjoyable experiences in science, and you probably feel the same way here, is that science is at its best when we're all sort of collaborating, there's lots of teamwork, but we're also celebrating cultures, right? We're finding common ground on issues. We're also, breaking through and making discoveries together and celebrating life. And so we really embrace diversity in our programs. 85% of our youth sort of fall into this bracket that we're following need experience in science. Black, Latinx, and I'll also talk about the importance of including refugees in that program too. And then I mentioned before about the technology fields and engineering fields being dominated by white males. Well, 75% of our students in our programs are girls. And we have now legitimately girls that have no idea about computer coding. I can't get them away from the sovereign, all supervised, by the way. So, you know, we're going to be at a point soon, you know, 10 years down the track, where we've got a cohort of our girl technology students. They're going to be graduating from nothing to that point. So we're trying to make a difference this way. And I'm excited for what the future holds there. So what I'm going to do now is just sort of give some examples of what I'd call our success stories, and then talk about the impact along the way. I think the first thing that I would say is that youth can be scientists. On top of, they really do need to be scientists, but I think they legitimately want to be scientists. And I think along that path there, I think they want to be treated with respect, and they want their ideas to be taken seriously. I think sometimes as adults we do better, but again, we're using a bottom-up approach. I think we can start, we can do it if they're given the opportunity. So let's treat them equally, let's treat them with respect and fairness, and see what they have to say. So one of the projects our youth team working on is this continuation of the jellyfish story. This is being recorded, yeah? Okay, so this is one of my sort of research fields when I was here at the Sea Lab, and we had published a paper back in 2013 showing that, in fact, rather than a sustained increase in jellyfish around the world, they just go through cycles of about 22 years. That time series went up to about 2010. And so forth. So we're about another decade on since we published that paper. But our youth have been on top of it. We've been updating the time series. And I've also been trying to figure out what's causing these cycles and things like this. Has this got any relation to what they might be experiencing in terms of hardship in their community? No. But it's an excuse to get in there and try something new. So when you show them pictures like this, and you've got to remember that some of these kids have never been to the beach before. In fact, I've got a couple of youth that live 4 blocks from the Keepia River, never been to the river up until recently. It's pretty wild. When they see things like this, they're like, holy cow, look at that. That jellyfish is bigger than me. So they've been doing this, and in fact, they can be scientists and they should be taken with respect, because this is Ashley. He was 10 years old at the time. Did anyone go to the CERT conference in Providence, Rhode Island? Yes. Did they steal the show? Yes. So we took some of our youth to the conference. They had 3 poster presentations, and I think they might have received an award or something like that. But poster sessions are hit or miss sometimes. But when they're turning off the lights at the end of the session, to say, like, it's time, we're closing up. Yet the entire poster role is full of experienced science, like some of the most experienced ethologists in the world, having discussions with our youth about research on jellyfish. I think that's pretty cool. And for me, it's actually one of the coolest things that I've ever been involved with. So this poster here, I'm just going to give a brief snapshot of what they did, right? Just to show, like, this is legitimate science. So with jellyfish blooms, we see the jellies swimming there, and when they congregate together, they can cause an impact in society. Stealing people, impacts tourism, fisheries, things along those lines. But a lot of the causes to these jellyfish blooms could actually be hidden in the separate part of their life cycle called the polyps phase here. And in fact, these little micro polyps, they live on rocks in the ocean environments, and when they're exposed to cold temperature, they metamorphose into baby jellyfish called a fire, and then they're released into the water column. So if we start to link climate change and jellyfish blooms, we need to look at these little problems. Now for kids, this is really, really neat and easy for them to do. Science doesn't have to be hard, but it's a very, very powerful tool. Because you can do this very, very simply in the lab. You can set up controlled environments for your dishes, which are your treatments, and you just have a microscope. You can use a smartphone to come up. It happens. It's very, very simple. You don't need anything other than that. And this is what they did for about 61 days. Not only Ashland, but they all chipped in and did this everything. You think counting jellyfish can't cause arguments? Let me tell you another thing. Their results are cool. So what this chart shows here is the number of polyps formed in each little well over the course of the 60-day experiment across 4 or 5 temperature treatments, 20, 13, 10, 7, and 4. These are meant to replicate current and future spring conditions, how the temperature might change with climate change. And you can see here, a picture tells 1,000 words. This is why I tell them that in the warmest treatment, there were more polyps forming. But only baby jellyfish were produced in the coldest water treatments. So that kind of creates a conundrum, right? Because if we're saying, okay, the oceans are getting warmer, but we're saying that these polyps need to be exposed to cold temperatures to produce warmth. That can be increasing if the oceans are getting warmer. It's a paradox. So we're actually in the process of working together as a group to actually present this and also publish this work. I'll talk a little bit more about this later on. But there's a little twist to the tail of the time series of what has happened over the last 10 years. And in fact, it could be that these cycles are actually getting more. Let's just give it away. So I think that's pretty cool. And I think this is going to have an impact on the jellyfish community as a whole. Science is the excuse to get together. So we have this cool thing, we get our youth together. But in my opinion, it's the conversations and the relationships that we build that are the most important. Yes, the science is fun and we always have fun for the most part, but it's these conversations that are equally more important. That's a hard slog. And I would encourage everyone to really step out of their comfort zone and go talk to someone about this. Because trust is a really, really important and difficult component to navigate with many sections of the public community. Again, I'm a middle-aged white male, and sometimes it's taken 3 years of sitting out and having coffee and meeting members to actually build that. It is so important because at the end, you don't think back to any goal. What are you trying to achieve? You're not going to get it by getting on the bike or stuff. You've got to actually build that trust, and sometimes it can take a lot of time. I'm still working on trust 7 years down the track with other parts. So I encourage everyone to get out there and talk to community members. The other thing is that you have to realize that many of the youth in our community have their own personal and big goals in their daily lives. It could include gun violence, gang recruitment is big, especially in middle school age. Domestic violence of their own. Parents are incarcerated. Food insecurity is big. Many of our youth live in deserts. They can use science to examine that. And I'm going to give the example here, 2 examples actually. This is Sonari. She came into our programs sort of very, very quiet. And after a while, we got talking. It turns out that she was she'd come home from school one day and noticed that there were 2 bullet holes in her bedroom window into the roof. Now think about that. Imagine if you came home and there was a bullet hole in your bedroom window, you fall into the roof as well. What would you do? Yeah, it's hard. I don't know what I would do. But you know what she did? She put duct tape over the holes. Put duct tape over the holes, and then she started to open up and say, well, they're always firing guns off in their neighborhood. And in fact, about a week later, we heard some gunshots in the neighborhood. And rather than everyone freaking out, the kids just, oh, that's a gunshot. We need to go to a safe place. I would never have thought that I would have to deal with things like this when doing science. Think about that. That's just blew my mind. But she has the courage now. She wants to be a doctor. So she has the courage now to pursue these lines of work. It is far more confident. This is Jelani. Jelani's a gem. I love him. Love him to death. But he's a middle schooler, being bullied constantly at school for the sole purpose of learning gangs. Gangs are a big problem in Wilmington. I'm sure it's a big problem here in Melbourne. I can tell you one thing that joining a gang is not going to happen a lot with Jelani. He's a very, very smart person, but like many teenagers, does dumb things. And so he likes the technology we're getting there, and he's been doing some pretty projects and things, lots of VR headsets. And one day I was on a hike in Asheville, which is in the western part of North Carolina, beautiful. And I get this phone call on the hike, and it's Jelani. He'd been popped into the Christmas box because he did something silly. He didn't call his parents. Mum's great. Dad's out to sea. He called like someone that he trusted. And again, that only comes through building these relationships. He was also basically after Hurricane Florence, he had mold in his house. So he had to live 3+ years in a motel. He was living on a blow-up mattress in some rundown motel for 3+ years doing school and doing all of this type of stuff. And he got sick of it. He wants to know why he was kicked out of his house. Why couldn't he go and live in his bedroom and places like that? So he actually did an experiment looking at different things in the house and how mold grows in these different substances. It's pretty cool, huh? Now he has a clear understanding about why he was kicked out of his house, and has had follow-up discussions with elected leaders about he needs to fix this problem, and which they're starting to do. So again, you can see how a simple conversation, an element of trust, can then flow into something a little bit more substantial. I think, as I said before, there is a huge disconnect between the cool stuff that happens on MacLean campuses and the community that's going to be serving. It's a great opportunity for making your science and the research that you do using taxpayers' money more meaningful and relevant to the wider community. So I don't know what the answers are to this, and I've struggled with this a long time. Even the jellyfish thing is a hard one. So would anyone here, just throw it out there, would anyone like to take a crack at a quick elevator speech to justify what's important with your experiment to the episode? You don't want to encourage? Jeff? Sediment, silicon? Jeff has the floor. Oh, no. Let's stay up. I think it's for the kids to sorry. It's not silicon. It's not organisms. It isn't just happening. That's very important. But when silicon the organisms die, the servants and the processes that come out, like things that one can find out. It's better than this. Yes. That's good. Was that hard? Yeah, but I thought that was really, really good. So I mentioned before that these needs may change depending on our definition of convenience, right? I think one of the most powerful programs that we run, and frankly, it's been the most inspiring program that I've been involved with, is a new program that is Science and Refugee Youth and their friends. So this is a partnership with Treasury Services, and in Wilmington, we have many refugee families that have come from wartime Ukraine, Syria, Afghanistan, Congo, and the list goes on and on. And so currently we have about 25 refugee programs. Just giving some examples here. This is Farouz, who just recently arrived from Syria. Her entire life has been living in a refugee camp. Think about that. She has no concept of living in a house or anything like that. It's living in a camp. And so there are issues with food insecurity, drought, definitely, disease, things like this. And so we've been collaborating with another nonprofit, and issues are water testing, water quality testing for harmful bacteria, E. coli, and Enterococcus, and trying to understand the neighborhood that she's living in currently. Why there's high levels of E. coli and bacteria, right? And then in turn, can relate that to her upbringing there as well. It's really quite amazing. This is Mariam from Afghanistan, and we're trying to give meaningful experiences as much as we can. We visit NC State every year, in fact, we fly over several lives there. But this is the first time that Mariam had been on the university campus. When you think about the way women are treated, their lack of exposure to any resources in Afghanistan, there's no access to education. They're not allowed to go to the doctor half the time. And so involving these youth, I think, is very, very hard. And it's going to make an impact on their life. In turn, you learn about their cultures as well. So how's everyone's Yeah, right. It's a tough one to learn. So one of my educators, actually two of my educators, she went to UNC Greensboro, and her background is in archaeology, but she speaks great English. So she does a lot of communication that way, and we can teach English too. We have to think about food that we give, because it's important to provide nourishing food, because again, these kids are only getting food at school, if possible. Yeah, you said it beautifully before. In order to think and engage, you have to think, right? It's as simple as that. Halal, right? So we have to provide all our food is halal, and then we can start talking about that. We also have prayers. So we'll be in the middle of an activity. We'll just get non-Christian. Actually, learn the chemistry behind non-Christian. The Egyptians were tanks well before we knew the process itself. We had to stop for prayer. So kids like to get out and engage. This is a project that we did with our Code Girls program. And they did image analysis of urban green space environments, and basically presented these results to many community leaders. Basically, they got together 1 kilometre square quadrats of images taken from Google Earth. And has anyone ever looked at their cell phone under the microscope? You should do this. When you go back to your labs after lunch, because it's a full work day, you'll see pixels, and inside of those pixels, the colours are dictated by red, green, blue, RGB, right? So, and it's just basically numbers. We can use Python coding to extract those data, and we can say if something's concrete or not. And that's what they did. So all the white things there are concrete. They produced a map of green space for Wilmington. Those purple dots there are flooding areas that they observed, and you can see great overlap between high concrete and flooding. This is why my front yard is flooding. And then you can also do heat index studies as well, which we do. It's also okay to experience the uniqueness of what we do as well. So we've been doing a big climate change project. So this is Amari and Camilla. They led this project. And a big part of, I think, what the power of science and science labs and what we do is how we can build teamwork and collaboration. And so we have a project that employs weather balloons to near space. And if I can get this thing to work, and this is a quick video. No. All right, so I don't think there's any sound here, but that's okay. So this is a project we started right at the start of YSA, and the kids get together and they work in teams. There's a technology team, there's an engineering team using 3D printing, there's a team trying to figure out how we're going to do this, where we're going to launch, who's calling the FAA, all this type of stuff, right? But at the end, we have a product through teamwork and collaboration that has technology there, measuring things, ozone, CO2, methane, all these greenhouse gases, and it has cameras as well. And the results are pretty cool. And it looks something like this, right? So we have tanks, we have regulators, all of that type of stuff. Sometimes the balloon, actually most of the time the balloon lands in a tree, then you've got to negotiate with someone to go and get it. But the images are spectacular. So you can see here, this is Lake Waccamaw from near space, and it gets pretty high, 150,000 feet, right? And they're like, oh my goodness, like this is how the Earth looks. I can see layers to the atmosphere. And then if all goes well, you can recover the Raspberry Pis, and hopefully they can land in water, so the hard drive has all the data. And then you can use Python coding and do some analysis to actually plot what the temperature does as it goes through the different layers of the atmosphere. It took about a week for one of my students to work through this. That's all we did, we sat in the corner of the lab and typed away with this. And at the end of the week, we had a visit from one of our sponsors, and the executives came in and said, hey, do you want a job? Simple as that. It was a really cool thing. The scientific method is stops like the matter keeps going, right? So repetition is the key, and it's all about showing them. It won't work if you just sort of go once and a one and done deal. You have to be there all the time, and of course, this is how relationships are built. So last year we partnered, well, actually, over the past few years, we've partnered with over 25 organizations, non-profits, companies, schools, the list goes on and on. And you know, it takes a community, it takes a village to build this. And it's really been one of the most pleasant things that has happened with starting YSA. Having this open door policy, and I would really encourage with your work and getting out there in the community and working with you. Go and talk to the churches, mosques, temples, community centers. Go talk to that principal at a Title I school, Christian educator life. Engage with the community. Step outside your comfort zone. It's going to be a great experience. One of the programs we did start during COVID was what we call sidewalk science. We know that we wanted to continue to engage with youth, with in-person programs, and sort of drag away from the computer. Like many organizations that actually really impacted by COVID, I would say we come out of COVID really strong, in fact, good. And working through and eliminating all the problems with health protocols and things like that. Instead of that, we took science into the neighborhoods. So we'd be in a park or actually visit down the sidewalk or outside the community center. And we had 60 minutes every week during COVID coming Monday through Friday doing science in the same university environment. I think it was really pretty cool. The thing about being in neighborhoods as well is you walk up. And so you can see up here in the top right corner is a gentleman, and he's like, what are you doing? We invited him, and he did science as well. So sidewalk science is a good one. Youth ambassadors, they need a voice. It comes down to having a voice. So I would say give them opportunities to talk science with the community. Tina, please. Remember we did that thing across the little marine study? Remember that boy tables? I wonder what he's doing now. We had some of our youth watch television come in and showcase some of the stuff that they learned in the classroom, right? It could be as simple as that. You might already be doing this. So we have our youth going out in the community. So this is some of our youth at the Aquarium Fem and STEM Night. 2,000 people come to this event. That's immediate exposure there. They get involved with tree planting events, looking at water quality as well. We partner with many of the city and council organisations. So a project that we did with the stormwater department where we installed a rainwater gauge. This is a neighbourhood where many of our youth live, and now they're developing an app that can better inform the community about these episodic extreme events and why neighbourhoods flood from time to time. We've hosted summits, and also our youth have been invited to present their research, city council meetings, county commissioner meetings, and other events as well. And if you want to silence politicians, invite youth to come and give their opinion and voice at a council meeting. Because the shock and awe of like, what is happening here? They're talking about climate change, they're talking about flooding. These are issues we just spoke about last week. It's very, very impressive. And then I think one of the coolest things in theory is science entertainment is you don't have fun this in your mind. Who's heard of this? Good, excellent. For those that haven't heard of this, this is a journal that the articles are written for youth, but they're written by scientists, just like here in this room. But it enables the youth, and our youth actually having used more than this down. And it enables them to learn about how science is done behind the scenes, the peer review process, and then in turn make suggestions for improving the research that you're after. This is the journal where they're going to publish the science. Think about branding as well. How can you make science cool? All kids like a little bit of competition. They want to feel engaged, and what they're doing is really, really important. So they start science quiz. So everything they do, they enhance. And the points go towards their team and individual effects. And it's going to be rewarding. I think the optional is maybe not. It's going to be cool. But I want you to pick a team by the time you read these. There are 8 teams currently, in fact, staying at 10 or 11. My favorite is hardcore science, like free-form science. But you all should let me know what the team is, because this is another way to build community around science. Because if you have a parent volunteer at an event, then they can also turn in and listen to their entire team. Now we've got parent involvement as well. So this has been really cool, fun thing to do. And I did not do the logos. So I would say everything, I would encourage everyone to think big. But this vision for what you want to see done in your career, it takes time, it takes a lot of time. How many of you have a strategic plan for your research or education? Yeah, is it up here? Yeah, right. No. Get it on paper, right? Have a strategic plan, 5 years. I can go back and go back to grad school, but I'll take a business class if I know a lot. But I think thinking great, I think big is great, but the risk is really worth it. And so about 5 years ago, I sat down with some folks, and we worked through our business plan and strategic plan of where I want to be. On the left here is our mission of carrying on with the facets of science and technology. But it's my long-term vision to have YSAs all over the world, is to establish this global network of youth, all collaborating using science and technology. Again, it's building in everything that I've sort of spoken about. And I think we're at a point now where we're doing well. We're starting to expand our programs in the PhD region. But I'm excited that in January, we're going to be starting a new collaborative program in Moldova. So I was there recently, and it was like this in October. It was everyone know where Moldova is from? In between Ukraine and Romania. It's very small. It's one of the most inspiring and brilliant places I've ever gone to. It was great. But this whole idea of going to Moldova started with a young girl. Her name is Maggie. She's on the left here. She's meeting the North Carolina Secretary of State, who was also present in Moldova during my site visit. And this all started with her saying, I think you should bring YSA to Moldova. And it's just amazing that this thought and the mindset of saying, well, I'm going to give this a go, how that can actually end up in something else like that. You can definitely have a voice. There's some pictures from my visit. You know, at some point here, I thought I was running for office. I shook so many hands. The only thing that was missing was a baby kissing. But, you know, I met a lot of students, a lot of teachers. I held workshops. This is going to be in collaboration with an organization called America House that is affiliated with the US Embassy in Chisinau, and also UN Women. And along those lines, I met some amazing people all over the country. And really looking forward to getting back there in January and doing this. There's going to be training components for educators. There will be mentorship on student research projects. This is truly going to be collaborative. Projects are going to be done here in North Carolina and simultaneously done in Moldova. And then this is all going to sort of, at least in the first pilot year, is going to end in late April with the hosting of a joint youth summit. So this will be done at the same time in Wilmington and Chisinau. There'll be a hackathon in there as well. So keep informed with this. We'd love to have you there. This is my partner in crime in Moldova. Her name's Daniela. And again, extremely dedicated. I think if she asked me to do something, I would do it. It's just amazing working with her. And excited to see where this youth collaboration project goes. So I'm going to end by saying, hopefully, I've convinced many of you of the importance to engage with you. There are many more ways that we can do this collaboratively that I haven't mentioned here today. But hopefully we'll leave today with one or two things that, you know, make me I'm always available for any thoughts, comments, and happy to do that with advice. Here we go. I'd love to hear what you have to say or have you experienced there. Not everything's going to work. That's the way it goes sometimes. But I really do encourage that we give it a go. And I'm looking with this thought here is that I think this is how we go about our work at YSA. Everyone's a scientist, they just don't know. And I truly do believe that. Science is the scientific methods of how we do it for gaining knowledge, but it's also a way of life. So I think there's a lot to be said with that. And with that, I thank you all for coming on the last day of the holidays. And I'd be happy to This is the discussion forums, questions, comments, feedback. So thanks again to you all.
Inspiring work. What was the biggest surprise challenge to the patient from this Huffington started?
That's what.
Oh, yes. My microphone is, I think the batteries might be, I don't know, but can they hear me on Zoom? Okay, can I hear it from this one? Okay. The question was, what is the most, would you mind repeating again?
Starting this up.
Yep.
The biggest surprise.
The biggest surprise in starting up YSA. Yeah. What there's a, I think there's an element of risk when you start this. Up to starting this organization, I had worked, primarily with kids that were in the classroom where my kids went, and things like that. And I would say that both my boys, they have a good upbringing. They've had opportunities to experience some of the things that we all experience. But I really did want to entertain and get youth that would never get these experiences doing it. There is risk involved with that. What inspired me, and I think surprised me the most, was how instantaneously willing youth are and how grateful they are to really just have the opportunity and to build relationships and to do it. And having that, once you have that framework in place, all of the other stuff just sort of falls into place. Every day I learn something new from the kids, and very humbled for the experience, very excited for the future. It reinstalls my confidence in the scientific method, and that we're in good hands in the future with our youth. That's what really surprised me. Ooh. Yes, so the question here for those on Zoom is, what are the biggest challenges in starting a nonprofit? It is super challenging, and there is paperwork involved. When I first started YSA, everything starts with an idea and a concept, right? But when you first start YSA, from a business standpoint, it was like deer in headlights. How many people here, and I'm posing this question to Zoom as well, how many of you here in this room have taken a business class? Business, accounting, 1, 2. And doing your taxes every year doesn't count. Yeah, I was in the same book. I know what a 990 EZ form is now. Articles of incorporation, IRS tax forms for your 501c3, all of this stuff. In fact, what I did was I got someone to do it for me to start off. That would be a big piece of advice to do. Also expect a lot of hardships from it. We're doing okay now in terms of funding. All our programs are free, by the way. And it's all through grants and donations and community support. So, but it takes a while to get there. The relationship piece is a big part of it. So don't expect to get paid, and make sure you have a good support network around you. Yeah. Are you thinking about starting a nonprofit? Do it. You want to pitch your concept? Yes.
You talked about bringing schools in
Yep.
But I'm a little concerned about that. Well, I'm happy about some of the read about students. I think what some of us have seen. Releasing the bio on the plans and reducing the high capacity of more than talking about women color and so I wonder, do you only think about statistics? I think that's good, or are you thinking about that?
Yeah, actually, this is a really good question. I can't think of a short way to frame it for the people on Zoom. Okay. Yeah. I am constantly evaluating the numbers. That's the scientist in me. It all comes down to what is the need of the community. So that number is high there because we have a program called CBS. It's the same program that Maddie and Melbourne signed up for. In the first 15 minutes. So, you know, before we started OPLs, our statistics for girls were like 25. So we got the funding, and the reason for that is that in the technology and engineering fields, 40% women, and when it comes to minority, you know, it's less than 7%. So that's not good. So it needs to be better. So it depends on what's the community question, what's the need. It could be that number goes down to 60%. It's the individual efforts that collectively build the story that we do. That are more important. We have another program for big boys, right? Obviously, that's all the boys as well. So it depends on that. Does that answer your question? And then there are sometimes people, probably people, whatever, you know that it has to be 75, 25, build and build. The department is doing it. Sometimes it has to be that way. But in this case, there's a reason for the 25 because the feedback we receive from you. And this is a value that we have focus groups, we can't do like that. That's it's no wonder because when you work as a computer software engineer, the board needs to know how to do that and recognize why they rather than sort of saying we're dominating. Again, I think that's great question, and eventually it's probably but I believe in the state of Alabama, you can employ someone at 14 years old. We do that as the not paying on. So if 14 years old, we'll bring you on as another 60. I just got a starting salary, another increase for the amount of time. So it's about that opportunity for them to continue to assist in our program and sort of continue that line, hopefully towards the same degree. If they don't take on the same, that's okay, right? Same not for everyone. Technology not for everyone, whatever. But they'll have a plan of attack and on contact this well. Things are most successful, like for our youth, when they see somebody like them, they are more inclined to be inspired by them, right? So, maybe I'm a character, they kind of like, but I can't do that. I can't do that, right? It has to be someone that is like them, that they know. But if you have like a high school, you go, in fact, I have an internship for one of the series that, you know, hopefully that's going to inspire other so
Yes.